There goes Davis. Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal back. He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field tonight.
Welcome back, everyone. We are the Saturday Savants. I'm Teak, and I'm joined by my ever-faithful hetero life mate, JB. War Eagle, JB. War Eagle, buddy.
War Eagle, Teak. It's a great week to be an Auburn Tiger.
I tell you what, man. We first game of the season, man. Whew, that was a tough one. That was a fun game overall. It was a wonderful outcome for Auburn. We're going to break that down today, and we're going to talk about what happened, what we saw, what we can expect moving forward, and seeing what's going on. I just, first things first, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is that my vision for how this game was going to go was spot on. I said it would be a slow start on the defensive side. We're playing a good QB. They're going to score quickly. The D would establish itself over time. Our running game would end up going downhill. Young QB settles in, and boom, here we go.
What was the score prediction that you had? Because you weren't right on the rest of it.
I was a little off on that. I think it was 24-17.
Yeah, it's pretty doggone close, though. That was about how it went.
So, for anybody that wonders if you should be listening to the Saturday Savants, I should tell you everything you need to know.
Well, keep it up. The luck befalls the stupid, I
guess. Yeah. How did your predictions go? That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, well, let's talk about this real quick. Auburn versus Oregon. We've got a freshman quarterback, and man, Bo Nix looks like a freshman quarterback until he doesn't.
Yeah, it's the best case scenario really for Auburn, Gus Malzahn, the offense, and Bo Nix himself. He had enough time to work his way into the game. He got a chance to make some mistakes that didn't kill the team. I think it was actually probably pretty good for him to throw that interception in the red zone where, he throws behind the receiver and gets picked off. He has a little bit of stumbles here and there. He got to show off with some of his speed, escape from some situations, and showed amazing pocket awareness for a young first start kid. And then to have the game end like it did, we drive down the field and be the hero and win the game like his father before him. That is a pretty special, maybe beginning of a legend of an Auburn quarterback.
Man, we got a very bright future. To see him let the picks roll off his back, make plays down the field, after making mistakes. One of the stats that I found very interesting, he was 13 for 31 for 177 yards. Not a flashy day by any stretch. Yeah. But he finished the game 7 of 13 for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's huge.
There's the stat right there. That's the story, and that's the way the game went too.
Exactly. And then the one thing that we have to say to Auburn fans, we are going to be on the bowl roller coaster for a long time this season. Anytime freshmen don't become seasoned veterans until week 8, 9. That's when they've seen a lot, they've gone through a lot, and you really know who they are, and that's where you can start to see some growth. We are going to be on the Bo roller coaster, man. There's just that's what it is with a freshman quarterback.
There's no doubt about that, Teak. But you can't ask for a better start to this whole thing. He got to play against. That Oregon team is fast, well coached, very very solid football team. Probably better than Auburn in several aspects of the game, just not the scoreboard.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll break it down. We'll go position by position up here, but just real quick on some quick takes, from the game. I personally didn't think Malzahn had a very good game plan going in. I think he made some decent adjustments at half that took pressure off Nix, but his opening game plan was horrible. He just threw it on Nix and said, here you go, kid, have at her. And I didn't understand why we weren't running the ball early, why we were putting so much on this kid's shoulders. The offensive line didn't play very well to start. I think a lot of that had to do with the calls that were being made, that we weren't we're running, in between the tackles and then throwing 3 times. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I think I don't necessarily agree with you. I'm no Gus fan like you aren't, but I don't put this on Gus nearly as much as you do. I put this really on an offense, completely overmatched offensive line in this game, which it scares me to no end. If we're going to have a rough patch this season, if we get ourselves into trouble, it's because this O-line isn't any better than they were last year. And that kid, let me finish. That kid was running for his life from the first snap, and those guys were in the backfield from the first snap all the way up until the fourth quarter of the game when they got tired and we started to get some push and our big bodies started pushing them around. But the reality is those guys were not exploding off the ball, and that's why the early run game and offense suffered. The offensive line got owned in this game.
They did, and there's no question. I think that, once again, going back to, I agree with your point, and I think that the offensive line did have a pretty poor game. The flip side of that is I don't think Malzahn was putting them in a position to succeed. He was asking a freshman quarterback from the second snap of the game. That first snap of the game was some stupid end around fancy whatever he was trying to pull, which to me, once again, greatest high school greatest high school coach in the nation, puts his first play out of from scrimmage is some stupid trickeration trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do.
Classic
Put us
Gus.
in a hole. It was classic Gus. It's high school shit. I mean, stuff. And it just once again, it put us in a hole early. We were already down 7. It backed us up. Now you got a freshman trying to throw the ball again, getting, rushers in his face. I mean, to me, it was poor game planning. And what I'm trying to say is that Gus did make adjustments at half, which has been one of my criticisms of Gus over time, is that I don't think his adjustments are very good and or work. This time they did. And I don't know if Gus is growing as a coach or if, like you said, it was just a matter of being tired on the other side and we had better athletes.
Here's what I really think occurred during the game. I think their game plan was to come out slow. It was to come out very conservative. Yes, the end around, I understand you don't like those plays, but that's a classic Gus move.
Yeah, not to start the game, man. Come on.
I get it. Hold on. So they come out slow. His entire idea was, let's monitor this. Let's show them our various formations. Let's see how they adjust. Let's see where our weak matchups are, and then hopefully we're well in position because we have the better athletes on the field. And we'll be in a good position come the second half to make that play. I believe that was part of it too. I believe Kevin Steele is a masterful adjuster.
Kevin Steele is the best coach we have in the building. There is no question.
His adjustments, that Oregon team couldn't do a thing the second half. They got that one touchdown early in the third quarter. That was it. They really didn't move the ball again the rest of the game. And whatever he did to adjust, and I do think it's adjustment. I think part of it's the personnel did get their feet underneath them and the players were just playing better. But whatever he did to adjust the scheme there from a defensive standpoint definitely worked, and it really hurt Oregon, and they couldn't really move the ball after that. And then thirdly,
go ahead.
The big travel delay. Everybody, I don't think anybody's recognizing this and identifying this as a huge issue. Auburn didn't get in to Dallas until 1:30 in the morning the day of the game. They were delayed by 14 hours getting in. They didn't have the pregame walkthrough like they were supposed to. They didn't get into the rhythm like they were supposed to. I think that definitely affected a first start quarterback and the first game players. I think that travel delay threw off the game planning and got them out of rhythm, and they recovered as the game went on and they got into the feeling of the game.
I can agree with that. I think that might be a contributing factor for sure. I also think that we had a situation where, and this is what I hate about these type of games. I hate playing these high pressure games right off the bat. We'll walk around the SEC later and see some of the cupcakes that ended up pulling up upsets. Even in those situations, you still got a chance when you're playing those cupcakes, even if you're having a bad game like we did a couple years back against, what was it, Utah State or somebody like that, and we ended up pulling it out. These high profile games early, man, I'm not a big fan of it. You're seeing probably one of the three best quarterbacks you're going to see all year in your first game on your first drive. Of course he's going to pick you apart. That's kind of what happens. When you play these A+ teams, or at least A teams, this is what happens. But to back up a little bit, I want to talk about Nix a little bit more. One of the things that I saw is that he doesn't really understand yet how to manage the game. I definitely saw that in his youthful exuberance. If he makes 5-7 small good decisions each drive, that gets you to the end zone, and then you can score. Whereas he was looking for the home run, especially early on. You could just tell he was used to throwing 60 yards down the field, and the best athletes on the field, and running for a touchdown and woohoo, and it didn't happen. And you could see he was getting frustrated early because he kept trying to go for those big strikes, and either it was overthrown or it was dropped or it wasn't a good pass or whatever happened, that you saw that it was like, hey, this isn't high school ball anymore. This is big time ball. And if he can really understand that, just like I said, 5-7 small good decisions on a drive, moving the ball down the field, making the right read, giving on the read option, handing off the ball instead of keeping it, little things like that, those small decisions that keep those drives alive, that move you down the field, that's what makes a successful quarterback. And I could see towards the end he was doing that, which I think was the difference between the two halves. He wasn't looking for the home run. He wasn't looking for got to get the big shot until it came available to him.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that stuff's going to come with him with time and the patience to kind of see it through. But again, I mean, we're really lucky to survive that game with the freshman quarterback and play the way that we did and have the outcome that we did, because all this is really a growing moment for him, because he got to take some lumps and some bruises and not have some success throughout a lot of the game, which I think is really healthy for his growth.
Definitely. I agree 100%. Now we got to talk about we'll talk about offense a little bit more, and then we can switch to the defense because we got a lot to talk about there. Booby's our clear number one. I don't think there's any question that Boobie Whitlow is our number one. I mean, Gus, I know, likes to take his time and give some guys a chance. I think it was pretty clear in this game that Malzahn wanted to surround Nix with veterans, and so that's why we didn't see Harold Joyner a lot. We didn't see some of these other guys a lot. You saw a lot of Boobie. Some of the other guys, Eli Stove, he was my underrated player of the game. He surrounded him with experience so that when he was making either off decisions or maybe not doing the right thing, he had people around him that would pick up the slack. And Boobie definitely did, especially the second half. I mean, 110 yards for him. We averaged 4.8 yards a carry for the entire game, man. I mean, the game turned around. It was a solid game once you put it all together. That's right. And a lot of what we expected that Auburn offensive line to be able to do, they really did in the second half, especially late in the second half, where they really pushed the smaller defensive linemen for Morgan around. They really started to get some explosion on the running game, which opened up the passing game, and we ended up winning the game because of that kind of combination there. I do want to hand it to Bo Nix, though. That was absolutely fantastic. His speed is a changer for us. Gus Malzahn's offenses work better when you have a quarterback that is a legitimate running threat, and his speed makes him a legitimate running threat. When he tucks that ball and runs, he is every bit as fast as those running backs. That is a big difference, and that's going to pay us dividends this year, especially as we get into these tight games, because that running game and that read option running game works way better when you have a real threat from quarterback. I agree. Stidham was not that. No, Stidham wasn't. You can see what he's doing in the NFL, sitting back in the pocket playing Brady. He's succeeding. And it was not part of Malzahn's design to have a guy like that, and it just didn't seem to work when things got up. My only concern is, especially early, I thought Nix, and this is just freshman stuff, we're going to see this all year, he was his tendency to pull the ball and run it at certain times when he could have thrown to an open man. You could see that there was guys open, but you get that nervousness, and it's easy to take off and run. And once again, this is what I'm talking about with the Bo roller coaster. We're going to have those ups and downs, and he's going to make those kind of decisions instead of hitting the open guy. He's going to pull the ball down and run and do some stuff that's going to affect the game. But overall, to see the cool and calm in that final drive, getting that first down, which I thought the spot was pretty crappy, but besides that, getting that first down, throwing the touchdown pass, going for the big strike, even though it was underthrown, it was just, once again, freshmen, we're going to have ups and downs, but man, the ups are going to be high with this kid.
Yeah, it's good. And there's a bright future in front of it. I mean, we're all excited about it. There's no way not to be excited about it. Let's talk about some other stuff too. I mean, I thought the receiver play overall was actually pretty solid, and the receivers, Bo really benefited from the receivers making breaks on the ball and being aware that the ball had been thrown, because as you mentioned, the winning touchdown pass specifically was not thrown very well. And the out pattern, even the receiver had to go get the ball. Now that's the kind of stuff we really have not seen a lot from Auburn wide receivers in a couple of years.
Yeah,
these guys helping the quarterback by better body positioning, better breaks on the ball, and making sure that the defender can't catch it, much less they. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Gus said that after the game in his post-game press conference. He was saying, "Look, I told him, you got to throw it where nobody else can catch it. If it's not there, throw it out of bounds. We're in position to kick the field goal to win. We don't, let's go for the strike, but don't make a bad play." And it almost was a bad play. That DB got beat pretty bad, and it worked out in our favor. But but once again, I mentioned this earlier. Eli Stove, man, he was my underrated player of the game. That kid. Once again, fantastic. That 36-yard sweep followed by the heads-up touchdown, trying to get them off sides of the guy running off the field. I thought, number one, it was a great play by Nix. Eli Stove was fantastic on that. I'm really excited about some of the things and some of the tools that we have that we can tweak in the next couple of weeks where we play the cupcakes, so that going into the heart of our SEC schedule, we're going to have some real good options out there on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, spreading it around, actually. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, four guys over 25 yards receiving. That's pretty exciting. That means that we do have quite a few weapons out there. There's quite a bit of options for this team to really rely on. If the offensive line can get its act together, which I'm still hopeful they will, this could be a fantastic offense because of all the various weapons that they have at their disposal.
I agree. I mean, once again, that is definitely the weak part of the offense right now is the offensive line. Well, let's switch sides of the ball. Let's talk about the defense. I think it was a little shocking to all Auburn fans, in our pregame, talking about what we thought was going to happen. You were saying, hey, Auburn defense comes out strong and knocks them back, and that's what we've seen in past years, and it didn't happen this year. And I think we all kind of got a little nervous. We're like, wait a minute, we're getting knocked off the ball. We're out of position on the defensive backfield. We weren't sure what these linebackers were going to be, and they just kind of marched down the field on the first couple drives actually, and it was looking pretty shaky for a while.
It was, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. There's no doubt that this team has NFL-level talent, especially up front. You know what? I was really convinced. It's so funny the difference that you get when you watch a game live and the emotion, the raw emotion that you face. That I was convinced they were pushing us all over the field. They were running up and down the field, and it was just going to be this just bloody mess. But then you look at the end of the game stats, and you're like, wait a minute, Oregon only had 90 yards rushing?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here, right? They only had 2.7 yards per rush. It's like, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I think part of that is that it's bolstered in the end of the game with sacks and things like that, some behind the play, behind the line stuff that pushed that average back down, which is also a credit to the defense. The thing that to keep in mind about this defense, I think, is, one, they showed a lot of depth because that Oregon team was moving. They were fast. They were explosive, and they were really firing off the ball. They caught them a little flat-footed to start the game. I think that whatever defensive scheme they came in with, Oregon had studied for what they were going to come in with and had a counter. And Auburn had to adjust. And Auburn adjusted well. Kevin Steele is a great adjuster, adjusted the defense. They didn't really move the ball again. After that drive in the third quarter, Oregon really didn't threaten Auburn from an offensive position again, which is a huge credit.
I think that Cristobal is a very good game planner. I think that's witnessed by, the first drive of the game, exactly like what you just said, and the first drive they got after the half. Those were their two touchdowns. I mean, those were the two big touchdowns. After the first quarter, their drive chart was punt, fumble, punt, half. Then they got the touchdown, punt, downs, punt.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't do much outside of the stuff that Cristobal could game plan, which was the first couple drives. I do. I give him credit for it because you could see when he was able to adjust things, they were successful. When Steele came back over the top and adjusted what we were doing on top of it, they didn't, and they weren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to hold them to 17 points it's pretty. 21 points is pretty incredible. I mean,
I don't think they're gonna. I was gonna say I don't think they're gonna score less than 3 scores the rest of the year. I think it'll be much more than that the rest of the way. I mean, this offense is potent. That quarterback is he's the real deal, man. I mean, against our defense, he still threw for 240 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he still had a great game. I wouldn't say he scorched us. He did early on. I think our DBs had a pretty rough, at least first quarter, and there was a lot of mental mistakes out there and just bad things that happened that way. But Steele adjusted, and the good thing for me, what really is exciting, is we have a good linebacking core. We were worried about it, but McLean's pretty decent. Popeye seems to be pretty good, and Britt is the real deal, man.
He's my new favorite Auburn player, Teak. I love
without a doubt, man.
If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should.
Very confident with those guys, man. We held them. Here's one more stat just to throw out in the second half: 13 carries, 13 yards.
That's an amazing stat. You talk about domination. The defensive linemen, we can talk about how good they are. That's the real stat right there. They'll never show up on the stat sheet from a tackle standpoint because they do the dirty work. Then the linebackers get all the credit. But oh my gosh, you talk about all of a sudden turning it on and dominating an offensive line. That's domination right there.
Well, especially an offensive line and an offense that was up 21-6, so they're going to be running the ball. See, that's the thing. They're going to be trying to move the clock and get the game over, and we didn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty. The defense is salty. They're big. They're mean, and they're conditioned because they played as hard at the end of the game as they did at the beginning. That turnover on downs, that was Oregon's last-ditch effort to try to get the momentum of the game back. And they didn't just miss that turnover on downs. They got crushed. I really, in hindsight, you got to kind of look back and go, that was the moment for me that I was kind of like, this Oregon team is whipped. They're done. They can't get it back together now.
Yep, I agree. That was huge. It was a big play, knocking the quarterback out. I think threw some things into, out of alignment for them, and it was a perfect storm of things that really went our way and helped us win the game. The last facet we got to talk about is special teams, man. What the heck? I mean, the special team coverage on punts was atrocious. I mean, every time we kicked the ball, I'm going, oh goodness, please. And man, it was his name, Javon Holland, 3 punts, 131 return yards. Ouch.
Yeah, I don't know that the coverage was as bad as the punts themselves. You cannot line drive the punt like that. You can never get good coverage if you're going to line drive every stinking punt. We have got to do something about the hopefully that's fixable. Because towards the end of the game, he started to boot him up in the air a little bit. Sippos was a little bit better, but my gosh, it was pretty terrible from a coverage and from a line drive perspective. The kicking game on the other side, though, was pretty solid. The younger Carlson did pretty well.
Yeah, he did what we expected. I mean, it would have been nice for him to make that one kick he missed, but whatever, it happens. I mean, he was money when he needed to be, and I once again we were talking special teams. I think not going for two at the end there was really kind of stupid. I didn't really understand why we wouldn't, because there was no upside to kicking a extra point. I mean, there was no, if we didn't make it, it didn't matter. Like we were going to be up by 4 instead of 5, or what is it, 5 instead of 6? It doesn't matter. I mean, the point was, go for 2 and try to make it a touchdown game.
Gus addressed it in his post-game press conference and said it was a mistake. He was trying to keep he said the sidelines went berserk. He was focused on trying to keep everybody off the field and not get a 15-yard penalty. They got one anyway.
Right.
And then he was so focused on the penalty, he didn't think he admitted it in the conference. He said, "I will do better in the future. We wouldn't do that again."
Yeah, we hope so.
I hope so.
All right, let's look at position grades. Yeah. This is how we'll go overall, then we'll go offense, and we'll go defense. So overall, my overall grade. Well, let's do that last. Let's do that. Let's start with quarterbacks. I give Bo Nix and oh man, I'm losing it. What's our other guy?
Herbert?
Joey Gatewood.
Gatewood.
I give him a B overall. I think we can get Gatewood in the mix a little bit more. I love to see that Bo over the top. He's a big, strong kid. I think there's going to be some opportunities for him down the road. Once again, we've talked at length about Nix, but overall, I give him a solid B. I thought it was a very, very solid B on the quarterback side.
I concur. I bump it to a B plus because of the outcome of the game, because of the way that the fourth quarter really played out. Both quarterbacks. I mean, Gatewood is one rushing play for a touchdown. That's a pretty good stat right there. Hopefully he can hold on to a pretty high bar that he's set for himself. And Nix is coming out in the fourth quarter, and the way that his poise came through was pretty amazing. I got to give him a B plus.
Okay, that's good. Running backs, I gave them a B plus, strictly for number one, we got over 100 yards carrying. We averaged 4.8 yards a carry. You had Joyner on that nice wheel route for a big gainer. Eli Stove on the sweep. He had a good one. Anyway, I just the run game in general. That's why I'm calling the running backs. I think it was a solid B plus. I don't want to quite go to the A because I think there's still more work to be done, but it was a solid B plus.
So I'm the opposite end on this one. I'm a B minus, maybe C plus, right on the edge, right there. I want to see more explosion out of these guys. I think they're doing their job. But doing your job gets you beat in the SEC. You've got to be explosive and you got to be spectacular. I didn't see any sort of explosion out of anyone. We need those kinds of plays from people in big games to be able to sustain down the pike here. So I'm giving them a B minus, C plus. I think there's huge room for improvement, and I expect to see it.
Exactly. I think that there is room, and I think that they can. There's going to be improvement. I think. Once again, I think the game plan had a lot to do with, especially early on, that kind of skewed some things and put us in a bad position where we weren't able to do things where the second half we definitely were running downhill and got some momentum going, which was good. But yeah, there's definitely room for improvement in the running backs. Wide receiver, I go with B minus, and the reason I say that, we had a few drops that probably shouldn't have been. I didn't see very good separation a lot of times, and that kind of scares me because I don't know that this was the most elite defensive backs we're going to face this year. And we have good players, we have injured players, and we have, once again, room for improvement. So it's not a failing grade by any stretch, but I say a B minus. There's more work to be done, definitely on the wide receiver spot.
Solid B for me. They came back to the ball. They made the catches when the game was on the line, when the game counted. It didn't feel like the drops were that impactful to the game, except for maybe the one. Overall, I was pretty thrilled with the way that the receivers played specifically. I think that there's this group with Canella, Williams, Hastings, Stove. That's a solid quad of people that we have back there, along with the running backs that are catching the ball well. So I think that piece of it is only going to get better as they're more used to the game time and they get more in sync with that quarterback.
See, one of my biggest problems was Williams didn't show up until the last play, basically. I mean, like
last series, he caught two critical passes in the last series.
He did, and I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is, where was he the rest of the game? This is the problem that I have. Like, we had guys that played well, and I'm not saying, once again, a B. I'm going B minus. You're saying solid B. We're splitting hairs here, but there's definitely room for improvement. All right, offensive line, I give them a C minus because I think they definitely turned it around in the second half. I think, to your point, was it the defense getting tired? Was it better? Fundamentals. What was the difference that made them better in the second half? I'm not sure, but that first half would have given them an F. I think you had a solid B plus in the second half, so I'm giving them a C minus.
I have the same grade, C minus. I don't think you can give them a D because they did win the game. They did end up excelling in the fourth quarter. But before that, boy, they looked really, really just they left a lot to be desired. I expected a lot more out of this group. I expected them, especially with an undersized Oregon defensive front, to be able to move them out of the way. When they're facing someone like LSU, they had got to grow up a lot and get a lot tougher and meaner, or we're going to have a rough time with those teams.
Good news is we don't play those tough teams till a little bit later, so we've got some more time. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they don't get used to playing the cupcakes and get full heads and then get smacked in the face by A&M. So we'll see. All right, defensive side, defensive line. I think outside of the first 7 minutes of the game, I thought they absolutely owned the rest of the game. They are exactly as advertised. They basically controlled the game from 3 minutes left in the first quarter through the end. And to me, as advertised, that's the best I can say. I mean, I gave them an A minus because, once again, I think we'll have better games, but not much. I thought this was a very, very good offense we faced, and our defensive line definitely held their own.
Yeah, I agree. A minus, really the only thing that keeps them from getting an A, because I think they recovered very, very well. Lack of tackles in the backfield.
Now, once again, and one thing we haven't really talked about, this is probably the best offensive line we're going to see all year. And for us to control the line of scrimmage the way we did for the 3 quarters of the game should tell us a lot about what's going to happen moving forward. I mean, there's going to be, we're going to talk about Tulane later. I feel bad for those guys. I really do.
I do too. Look, let's move on. I mean, the defensive line is the strength of the team. There's no doubt about it.
There's no question. Now, linebackers, once again, extremely happy. I give them a B plus. I was shocked at how well we were coming downhill and making tackles. The multiple tackles for loss, the goal line stands that we had, down after down where they weren't getting in. A lot of that was the linebacker play coming through and making big plays, wrapping up good, tackling hard. Like I said, Owen Popeye, I'm going to call him Popeye. I don't know what fantastic player, Popeye, man. It sounds much better. and then KJ Britt is the real deal, man. I'm so excited about that kid. It's funny. I was watching Game Day, and Gus was on Game Day on Saturday morning, and they asked him who's the one player that's unheralded that's going to be a whatever that we're not talking about that you're going to see in this game, and he said KJ Britt. And when he did, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then so I kind of watched for him from pretty much the first snap, and wow, I mean, this kid's got a bright future, man.
He sure does. He's fast becoming my favorite player on this team. Just the passion that he plays with, his football intelligence, the way that he's just explosive, and he has that nose for the ball we've talked about before. He just appears around that football all the time, which is what you want from a big linebacker.
Yep, fantastic. All right, defensive backs, I give them a C. I was not very pleased with what they did. There was a lot of mental mistakes. Once again, it's tough. 19-year-old kids, in man coverage, and then we had a couple where there was man zone and nobody picks up the guy going across the field for a 40-yard gain, and just really bad. And that jump ball touchdown in the tight end with Davis, man, that was just bad fundamental football. It just was. How do you get caught flat-footed on that? It just made me sick. So once again, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think we have a lot of talent back there. If we have a good quarterback and good receivers, it's going to be a tough day for us if these DBs don't improve, especially fundamentally.
Yeah, I think they get a C- because of the expectations going into the season. A veteran group really supposed to be shut down. They weren't. They were playing against a great quarterback, but what was supposed to be a pretty dinged up receiving core. I thought that receiving core kind of ran them all over the field most of the game. They tightened up obviously as the game went on, but there was a lot of mental errors there to be expected for a first game. But I think that grade will only improve.
I agree. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. It's, once again, first game, and those are the kind of positions that you can have up and down days. When you talk about maybe lack of sleep and things like that, that can really affect those young athletic guys more so than in the trenches. But anyway, all right, special teams, I give it a D. Strictly, once again, yes, on our side of the ball, I think we did okay. Our coverage was atrocious. Our kicking was atrocious. Punting, I should say. Even to the last, 6 seconds left in the game, and we're squibbing it from the 20. I was nervous, man. I'm going, oh, this guy's going to run it back, and that's not a position you want from your special teams. So, special teams need some improvement, need some work. I can't give it more than a D.
I'm right there with you. I think we're purely aligned on what we watched happen on Saturday. That I would give the punting game a D-, close to an F.
Yeah.
The only reason they don't get an F is because nobody actually put one in the end zone, but they almost did a couple times, which is pretty scary stuff. And the kicking, the field goal game, I mean, I think that was fine, but it's almost like a given. Like the only way that you get better than a C is that you do something fantastic, right? Missing a field goal, not acceptable, not great. But again, a lot of room for improvement with some talent. I think we'll probably be fine, but punting game specifically has me a little worried going the rest of the season. I
agree. All right, looking at the coaching staff, we'll just go offense, defense. On defense, I give Steele an A. If I could give him an A++, I would. I think he did a fantastic job. The adjustments, like we've discussed. On the offensive side, Malzahn, it's going to be hard for me to give him good grades. I'm giving him a B-.
So I give Steele an A- because I think that his pregame was poor for him. He didn't have those guys mentally ready for what Oregon was going to do, which is unusual. He's going to get an A most games from me, so I'm going to take this one chance and say, man, you probably should have been more ready about what Oregon was going to come at us with, especially on those short passes, things like that. Malzahn, I thought, I'm in complete disagreement with you. I think this is one of his best moments. I think it's one of his best games because he's dealing with so much uncertainty. Going into a foreign place like this with a short game prep that gets all messed up with a true freshman quarterback against a top 10 rated team. And I think he played that game exactly like he wanted it to. I'm giving Malzahn an A-.
That's what I have to say about that. It's going to be hard for me to ever give him much more than a C. Anyway, overall, I think it was a B- day. I think there was things that could have, obviously could have gone the other way on some things and would have been a different score. But overall, I say B-. There's a lot of room for improvement. But man, there's a lot of exciting things that we can see in this group and moving forward. I'm very excited. I think overall, like I said, I give it a B-.
That's probably correct. Probably a B- just because it's the first game. There's so much to improve. My heart says though that's an A because, I mean, seriously, top 10 team on the road. Granted, neutral site game. It's still on the road. It's not in your backyard with your fans. It is totally different atmosphere. They came out on top, and they did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. So, All right, let's look forward to Tulane here. I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It is a cupcake where, you know, they got that LSU grad transfer, McMillan. He's a pretty decent quarterback, 6-1 as a starter. They like to run the ball. Tulane is hot. They've won 6 of their last 7 going back to last year. You know, they just pounded FIU, but everybody pounds FIU. You know, it's going to be what we think it is. I mean, I don't see this being but a 48-17 romp.
No, I think it's probably a closer game than we want to admit. They won't have a person on the field as talented as our person on the field in the corresponding position anywhere. But they play with heart. They're very, very well coached. They will be explosive. They have an explosive offense. I expect them to score a bit. But with the defense that we have, and being at home in Auburn, Alabama after a big win like this, probably get started a little bit slow, but we'll probably grind them down and have a complete victory when it's all said and done. The goal is, let's get through this thing with a solid victory. Let's not get anybody injured, and let's recover from what was a huge emotional victory.
Well, what I'm really looking forward to seeing is what decisions are made and in other personnel. Meaning, like I said, I think early on, especially in this game, and even into the second half, Malzahn didn't really want to put some of the younger guys in around Nix. He wanted to surround him with experience. He wanted to, give him his best shot. I think now we kind of know what we have. So I think Malzahn will be a little bit more liberal with what he does for, number one, for play calls, and number two, for personnel. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that in this game. Once again, they're a running team. Our linebackers and our defensive line are going to be head and shoulders better than the offensive line at Tulane. Do I think that they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit? Sure. Like I said, their quarterback's decent. He threw – was like 78% completions against FIU, which is, pretty amazing. Yeah,
I don't care who you're playing against. That's an awesome stat.
Exactly. I mean, so he's a good quarterback, but once again, I don't think they're going to have the beef to compete with us.
Right. I mean, they're a rushing team. They had 350 yards rushing. That's incredible. That's a big rushing statistic, no matter who you're playing against. It's not like Auburn playing FIU. This is Tulane playing FIU, right? So it's a pretty solid ball club. I mean, they're pushing the ball around pretty good. I would expect them to come out firing. Now, I don't know that they can stop us from scoring, though, especially if our offensive line gets an attitude. They're going to have a heck of a time. They're having to have a heck of a time with our size.
Yeah, and our speed too, I think, is going to be too much for him. But it's what's to be expected. This week is not about, like I said, it's not about winning. It's going to be about playing, who's playing and who's playing well, and how we play. So that's going to be the fun part to watch. All right, let's cruise around the SEC, because although Auburn did win and we had a big game, man, there is some funk out there in the SEC this year. Some absolute funk. Let's start with Ole Miss. They were supposed to lose to Memphis. They did. They really didn't show up at all in the first half. It was just a pitiful game.
They appeared like they were going to take control of the game in the third quarter. I watched the game, and it's, boys, this Ole Miss team doesn't have much. It's pretty incredible. I mean, Memphis is well coached ball club. They're probably going to get their coach is probably going to get poached again at the end of the year, because it's kind of a breeding ground for great coaches, right? But the Rebels just don't look sharp at all. The problem that I think all of us had was just their complete and total ineptitude on offense was just scary bad. They could not snap the football. It was really pathetic. They are going to have a rough season. I don't see how they have enough talent to win 4 games, much less 6.
I agree. It's going to be a very very long road for them this year, and it doesn't, like you said, coach is probably going to get sniped. They don't really have a good. It's just a sad state of affairs. I would not like to be Ole Miss right now, and That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, with them being down, I'll leave this and we'll move on. With Ole Miss being down, and Ole Miss, historically usually has a pretty good quarterback, usually has pretty good receivers. With them being down is the whole game and being able to basically open it up on offense and do anything they want to try to get back in that game. They had 173 yards of total offense with 93 yards passing. Take.
Ouch. That's
They're in big
scary.
trouble. They're in big trouble.
All right, one game that we have to briefly mention: Mississippi State won against now called Louisiana. When did this happen? When did Louisiana Lafayette become Louisiana? Can somebody help me here? Because this is one I see it and I'm going, wait, Louisiana? Who the heck is Louisiana? And I see Raging Cajuns, and I'm like, Lafayette? I'm like, is this ULL? What's going on? When did they change their name? I want to know when they changed their name.
It's the era of corporate rebranding. We're going to start rebranding football teams too, I guess.
I guess it's like, so now they're Louisiana. So now you either play LSU or Louisiana. But yeah, whatever. It just was one of those. I kept seeing it. I'm going, when did this happen? It was always ULL. My entire life, it's been University of Louisiana Lafayette, ULL, and now they're just Louisiana. I don't. Why not Monroe? They beat Alabama, for God's sakes, a couple years back. Why not them? Why is it? Whatever. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about the. It was a good game. I'll be honest with you. The North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm sorry. North Carolina, South Carolina, return of the MAC, 15 points in the fourth quarter. South Carolina just rolled over. If I'm Muschamp, man, this is a tough day, buddy. This is going to be a tough week.
It's a game you absolutely had to win. You had to win it for momentum. You had to win it to quiet the fan base, get them on your side as you go into the SEC here. Against an overmatched North Carolina team, a team that has been crushed by sanctions. Yes, they have a big motivator coach. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Mac Brown's always been. He's a great recruiter and a good motivator. Always never really known as a great in-game coach, which is kind of hilarious that in the fourth quarter how you really kind of put the screws to him.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for South Carolina, quite honestly, because they had everything to lose in this game, and North Carolina only, basically was a moonshot to win this thing. I thought they were anyway, but the way they dominated, especially the end of the game there, it was a pretty actually one-sided game until halftime. And then North Carolina, I look at the final stats and I'm like, North Carolina had double the yards of SC. Like, what's going on here?
Well, and they did it all basically in the fourth quarter too. I mean, it was ridiculous. I saw most of this game, and North Carolina was outmatched for three quarters, without a doubt. I mean, they moved the ball a little bit. They I think they kicked a field goal in each of the first three quarters. That was it.
Yep.
South Carolina had the game in hand, and then just, I don't know, they just Muschamped it. I don't know. It was just a bad situation. But all right, so let's move on to the scary parts of the SEC. Missouri loses to Wyoming by 6.
Yeah. What's going on there?
What the heck? And it wasn't like Wyoming pulled it out at the end. No. Wyoming was up at the half. Like this was controlled pretty much the rest. Missouri did.
Wyoming exploded in the second quarter. They had 20, 25, 27 points second quarter.
Yeah.
No one can understand what in the world just happened here. Maybe Wyoming's the world beater. Maybe that's the shocking team. Maybe that's the Nevada that comes out this year, and everybody's like, "Holy smokes!" But embarrassing loss for Mizzou. Boy, that doesn't bode well.
It's not good, man. It's really not good. There's those kind of losses are scary. I mean, you shouldn't be in a position to let Wyoming beat you, and you shouldn't have. If they do come out and smack you in the mouth early, you should be taking the game over. They got smacked in the mouth, came out at the half, and didn't score. For the entire third quarter. Here's
the damn stat of the game, though. Okay, Mizzou, passing yards 423, Wyoming 92.
Yeah,
and
ran
they
all over them. Yeah,
ran all over. Yeah. That's called getting your butt kicked right there. I mean,
that's literally getting your butt kicked. All right, let's go one more that kind of matters, and this one is the most baffling to me. I did not see the game. I saw the periodic highlights that
I watched the whole game,
and I saw the end result, and I have to wonder the hottest mess, the dumpster fire in the SEC is Tennessee by a long shot. Tennessee loses 38-30 to a Georgia State team that won 2 games last year. This is not a juggernaut. This is not Appalachian State that's beaten, that's been a national champion for 4 years running. This is bottom of the FCS, or I don't. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're now in the FBS. I don't know where they are. Doesn't matter. Georgia State. Who cares? The point is, Tennessee at home, Neyland Stadium. What's wrong with this program?
It's embarrassing. I mean, there is no two ways about it. It is an embarrassing state of affairs in Knoxville. There's no scenario that I can conjure up in my mind that a Tennessee team should lose to Georgia State ever. Not in a down year, not in a passing year, not in a miracle. I mean, they turned the ball over a lot. They looked sloppy. They looked undisciplined. The biggest problem, the biggest problem is the defense. I mean, they were pathetic. They could not stop they couldn't tackle. They couldn't get lined up properly. And they're supposed to be really a defensive minded team now. And I'm baffled by it, Teak. I have no answers whatsoever. I know that Tennessee fans are grappling this weekend. That's a scary loss for them, because this was supposed to be a big turning point. I mean, this is the way that you get the season on track and you put some of the past demons behind you. Oh boy, they don't look good at all.
Exactly. This was supposed to be the turning point year for them. Last year was the rebuild. This is supposed to be the turning point. And there's two programs in college football that have fallen from grace the furthest: Nebraska and Tennessee. Nebraska seems to have gotten a little bit, I think they had a little bit of problems this week, but they ended up pulling it out. They're both of these universities are kind of in the same boat. They've fallen from grace. They don't seem to have really good game plans to get it back. And in Tennessee's case, man, they've fallen so far, and their expectations, especially on a fan base, are so high that, I mean, will we ever see Tennessee back in an SEC championship game again? That's the question.
It's recruiting. As it stands right now, it's recruiting. There's no doubt in my mind it's recruiting. I watched that game, and I couldn't help but think, my God, they don't have the players. I was stunned by how slow and out of size they seem to be. Like, it did not look. You look at the top programs in the SEC, and you look at the guys on the field and go, oh, I don't want to face that guy. That guy's terrifying. You look at the Tennessee team and you go, well, it kind of look like a MAC team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way that I'm looking at it right now. And I don't know the last time they finished in the top 20 of recruiting. Now they've had a rough run at it, and that's kind of what happens sometimes. Let's see where they finish last year. Composite rankings. Oh, I take that back. 13. Okay, but that's last year. You go back to 18 where they finished. They're in 2027.
Wow.
Yeah, you go 17, right? These are the guys that are coming of age. They're at 18th. Tennessee, University of Tennessee. Right? 16, which would be seniors this year.
Yeah.
They were 16. There's composite rankings are 16. So you're looking at a program that during the Phil Fulmer era was top 5 recruiting class every single year, usually in the top 3. Like, that's how well he recruited, and he was building that program. And throughout their history, they've been really strongly recruiting. Virginia Valley area, that kind of stuff, and pulling those recruits. I don't see that right now, and that's, I think, is the number one problem, is that you go down the road like this for a couple of years, and you let the program fall and you make some bad coaching hires, or they leave you and you can't build continuity in this stuff, it's hard to get these things back on track.
Who wants to go to Tennessee today? JB, seriously. You have Alabama, you've got LSU, you've got Auburn, you have Georgia. You have, I mean, even, now, South Carolina. I'm just trying to, Florida.
I don't know. It's not as tough a place to recruit as, say, like, Arkansas, where you're in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, this is what I'm getting at, but it is now. They've put themselves in a corner. Like, that's always been my thing about the Cornhuskers. When Nebraska fell off, Nebraska was a top team, and nobody wants to go to Nebraska. Let's be honest. These kids don't want to go to Nebraska. And if you're not going to be on national TV like they used to be, every week, and everybody talks about them on talk radio, now every game is on TV. Every you can go anywhere and get on TV now. So there's no real gloss to it. That's why Nebraska's down. Tennessee, it's not a bad place to be. Knoxville's beautiful, man. The campus is nice. They've got a great stadium. They've got a huge fan base. But who wants to go there now? They've beaten themselves down so bad. And like you just said, recruiting class is 16, 18. They're getting beat by Georgia State. What was their recruiting class? 463rd? This is sad. This is sad. It is we've been watching for about 12 years now, the death knell of a used to be national program. And I'm sorry, if you're a kid in Virginia and you're a top prospect, you could go to Virginia Tech, you could go to Miami, you could go to Georgia, Auburn. Why would you go to Tennessee?
It just shows you how hard it is. If you lose the luster, it's hard to get it back, and even for a storied program like Tennessee. I know it's opening game against Georgia State. I was just looking at the full story on the game here. Attendance, Neyland Stadium holds what, 105,000 people?
Yeah, 100,000, something like that.
Yeah, 83,000 people at the game.
20,000 empty seats.
Yeah,
that's more than Georgia State holds.
That's unheard of. That's unheard of. It shows you the state of the program and the apathy by even the fans. I mean, what is going on? I mean, that there's an entire section of this state that eats, sleeps, and breathes Tennessee football, just like these other SEC schools. They're, those of you that are in other states, make no question about it. People here love their Vols. Something's not right, man. Something's not right from a deep state kind of thing. They've got to fix it.
Yeah, well,
the SEC is better when Tennessee is better. I don't like the Tennessee.
I agree. When you have those prominent programs, when Notre Dame's good, when Nebraska's good, when Alabama's good, when Ohio State and Michigan are good, yes, it's better for football, period. But I'm sorry, if I'm a recruit, I'd rather go to Kentucky at this point than go to Tennessee.
Wow. That's saying something.
It's true. You got a better chance of winning. You got a better chance of going to an SEC title game at Kentucky than you do at Tennessee. That's sad.
So if we take a step back now and we kind of look at the overall SEC, what it looks like to me is you've got a couple, just like we have the last couple of years, you've got a couple really good teams, and you've got a bunch of crap in the SEC right now.
Yes,
it's not a dominant conference.
No, you have the upper echelons. You have Alabama at the top. Then you have Georgia, I think, is just a little bit step behind them.
See, to me, Georgia looks like that they played a much harder team.
I agree. I think Georgia's the best. I think Georgia's got the inside track. I told you, Alabama's going to lose 3 this year. I'm going to keep saying it, and you'll see. They're going to lose 3. But as we sit today, you have to say Alabama is the upper echelon. You've got Georgia right behind them. And then you have Auburn, LSU, I would say is maybe the 2A, 2B, and then Florida is now, down below them with Texas A&M. And then below that, and even there, it's a little questionable. Then below that, maybe Kentucky's with them this year, possibly. Maybe Mississippi State if something falls right for them. I'm just saying, like, you got those guys down. But Arkansas, Ole Miss, Vandy, Mississippi State, South Carolina now, Missouri. A lot of not a lot of good in the SEC this year, which is fine.
No,
Because if you play well against those top echelon teams, you can still make things happen. And like coming from an Auburn perspective, we're going to play all the top dogs. If we knock them out, hey, we're going to the dance, baby. And that's the best part of the conference, the way it stands. But man, when it comes time for bowl season, we're going to get 6-7 bowl teams, and I don't know that we're going to win 3 games.
I don't see it this year. Things can turn around over the course of the season, but if you look at it, Mizzou's garbage, Vanderbilt's no good, Arkansas is really not good, Tennessee, scary bad, UNC beat South Carolina. South Carolina's poor. You've got Mississippi State that probably really got outgained by ULL. You've got a Mississippi team that's down. UK, who knows? They could be reasonable. They could not be. That's 7 of the teams, 8 of the teams that are pretty either mediocre or below mediocre. They're just bad. This is a down year in the SEC.
Yep, it really is, and we're still going to probably put somebody in the national title game. That's the fun part of the SEC.
It is. It's pretty crazy.
All right, JB, thank you. We will be back next week to talk about the Tulane victory and whatever comes next, and we will definitely stroll around the SEC. We got a couple better games this year, I think, or this week. You got Clemson and Texas A&M. That's going to be a good one. Tennessee's playing BYU. Let's see if they go 0-2. That'll be interesting. Texas LSU, that's going to be a good game. And, of course, the game of the week, Florida and UT Martin. That is the one. Mark it on your calendar, boys.
You're crazy, Teak. War Eagle.
War Eagle, buddy. I'll see you next week. Thanks, man.
See you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.